Sofia, a young woman in her 30s, was about to give birth to her first daughter. The hospital was silent, and everything seemed peaceful, but Sofia felt a growing anxiety. She held her husband's hand, Renato, with strength, trying to contain the tears that welled up in his eyes with joy and nervousness. After hours of labor, the baby was finally born. When the nurse placed the little girl in Sofia's arms, a smile of relief spread across her face. But when she looked at her daughter, her world began to fall apart. The baby had dark skin, a stark contrast to Sofia and Renato's white skin. The hospital room, which had previously felt warm, was suddenly filled with suffocating tension. Renato, who was observing the scene in silence, took a step back. His eyes widened in disbelief, and his expression changed from happiness to shock. He looked at his daughter, then at Sofia, and without saying a word, his face hardened. Sofia, noticing her husband's reaction, felt a chill run down her spine. She knew what he was thinking. His eyes, which were once filled with affection and expectation, now reflected doubt and anger. "How is that possible, Sofia?" he finally asked, his voice low but full of accusation. Sofia's heart accelerated. She had never betrayed Renato, but his words sounded like a sentence of condemnation. "I swear, Renato, I don't know what's going on, but I've never," Sofia began, her voice choked with fear and confusion. However, Renato wouldn't let her finish. He took another step back, shaking his head, unable to believe his eyes. "This child cannot be mine. There is no other explanation." His voice was cold and distant, and every word was a blow to Sofia's heart. He quickly left the room, leaving Sofia alone with the newborn in her arms, her chest heavy with a mixture of pain and despair. The following days were torment for Sofia. Renato avoided looking at his daughter, and when he spoke to Sofia, his words were full of contempt. He began to openly accuse her of treason, spreading doubts and insinuations, as if he was convinced that his wife had made an unforgivable mistake. Each accusation was like a knife stuck in Sofia's heart, who didn't understand how her life had fallen apart so quickly. The man she planned a future with now treated her like a stranger. As time passed, the situation became unsustainable. Renato started talking about asking for a paternity test, claiming he needed to find out the truth to finally clear his name. The marriage, which was once full of love, was now completely destroyed by doubt and distrust. Sofia, who always believed in the strength of the relationship, saw her world gradually crumble. The daughter, who should have been a blessing, was now the target of rejection by her father. On a particularly tense night, after a devastating argument, Renato gave the ultimatum. "I can't live like this anymore. If you don't leave the house, I will. Take that child with you and never come back." His words echoed in the silence of the house, and Sofia felt the weight of the world collapsing on her. Fear for her daughter's future, took over his heart. She knew she couldn't continue in that situation. Desperate and heartbroken, Sofia made a drastic decision. In the middle of the night, she grabbed some clothes for herself and her daughter, packed a small suitcase, and fled the house that had once been the center of her happiness. With Anna in her arms, Sofia drove through the city, the deserted streets reflecting the emptiness she felt inside. She didn't know where she was going. She just knew she needed to escape, protect her daughter, and find a new beginning. What she didn't imagine was that, years later, a surprising discovery would change their lives forever. Sofia drove for hours that night, with Anna sleeping in her arms, and her heart heavy with Renato's accusations. He had no destination, just the urgency to escape the chaos that his life had become. After traveling miles, she found shelter in a small country town, far enough away that she could start over. When she arrived, her teary eyes and trembling voice convinced the owner of a modest inn to let her stay for a few days. No questions asked. There, in that simple room, Sofia could finally breathe, although the weight of uncertainty remained on her shoulders. In the following days, Sofia began to reorganize herself. He needed to find a way to survive and take care of Anna. Every time he looked at his daughter, his heart was filled with love, but also with questions. how to explain the girl's dark skin. Even though she was the fruit of her womb, the mystery of Anna's appearance haunted her. She knew, deep down, that Renato's doubts would not dissipate, and with each new day, the feeling of betrayal seemed to consume him more. For Sophia, the mere thought of returning to face these accusations was unbearable. Life in the new city was modest, but it offered a peace she hadn't felt in recent months. Sophia found work at a small local bakery. It was a simple job, but it allowed him to support Anna and ensure that they both had what they needed to live. She also met a neighbor, Dona Elsa, a kind lady who, whenever possible, took care of the baby while Sophia worked. The routine began to settle down, but the scars of the past were still fresh, and the silence of the night often brought back painful memories of the days leading up to his escape. Despite the difficulties, Anna grew up healthy, and her presence brought light into Sophia's life. The little girl was already starting to take her first steps, with a charming smile that lit up any room. With each passing day, Sophia found herself more connected to her daughter, and although the mystery of her appearance continued to bother her, she decided to focus on creating a safe and loving home. It didn't matter what the world said or what Renato believed. Anna was his daughter, and that would never change. What Sophia didn't know was that destiny had more surprises in store for her. One day, when he heard a conversation in the bakery about a new hospital in the neighboring city, something woke up inside him. The hospital was opening vacancies, and Sophia, tired of the limitations of working at the bakery, saw this opportunity as a chance to improve Anna's life and provide a more stable future. Despite her fear, she applied for a position as an administrative assistant. After days of anxiety, the answer arrived. She had been accepted. Working at the hospital brought new perspectives to Sophia. The environment was dynamic, and people, although strange at first, soon began to treat Sophia with respect. She began to make friends among the doctors and nurses, and her life, for the first time in a long time, began to gain color again. Anna was growing up fast, full of curiosity about the world, and Sophia finally felt like she was rebuilding something that destiny had destroyed. However, as much as the routine brought a feeling of normality, one question still persisted. Why was Anna born with an appearance so different from hers? The mystery about Anna's origins continued to hover over Sophia like a silent shadow. It was a doubt she carried with her, even without openly admitting it. The people of the city accepted Sophia and Anna without question. But Sophia knew that, at some point, she would need to face the truth about what had happened. Little did she know that the answer to her anxieties was closer than she imagined, and the hospital where she now worked would be the place where a surprising revelation would change her and Anna's lives forever. A few months after starting her job at the hospital, Sophia began to feel like she had found a kind of stability. The job allowed a more comfortable life for her and Anna, and, over time, she gained the trust of her colleagues. The routine at the hospital was intense, but Sophia felt useful. However, in the midst of this new phase of her life, the mystery of Anna's appearance continued to disturb her, especially when she saw curious looks directed at her daughter. Although no one asked direct questions, Sophia felt the weight of the unknown hanging over both of them. It was during an ordinary afternoon at the hospital that the first piece of the puzzle began to fall into place. While organizing some medical records at reception, one of the doctors, Dr. Vincent, started a casual conversation about genetics, something he studied in depth. He talked about how genetic traits can manifest themselves in unexpected ways in descendants, sometimes skipping generations. Sophia, who until then had been listening to the conversation from a distance, felt her heart race when she heard the word genetics. That awakened a painful memory in her. Renato's accusations and the mystery surrounding Anna's skin color. Unable to contain her curiosity, Sophia decided to ask, "Doctor, you said that characteristics can skip generations, right? Is this something common?" Vicente, always helpful, explained that, yes, recessive genetic traits can appear in descendants much later, surprising even the parents themselves. He gave examples of families where this had happened, mentioning that some unexpected genetic combinations could result in the immediate parents looking different. Sophia listened attentively, but a doubt still gnawed at her insides. Could this be what had happened to Anna? Or was there something deeper? That night, after putting Anna to sleep, Sophia stayed awake, reflecting on the conversation with Dr. Vicente. The scientific explanation made sense, but it still didn't seem enough to calm his heart. A deep uneasiness continued to grow within her. Determined to better understand the situation, Sophia made an appointment with Dr. Vicente, saying that she would like to know more about genetics and whether it would be possible to carry out some type of exam. He, realizing the seriousness of Sophia's request, readily agreed to help her. Days later, Sophia and Anna went to the office to collect blood. Dr. Vicente suggested that they do a complete genetic test to better understand the family lineage and see if there was any explanation for the contrast between the appearance of mother and daughter. The test itself was quick, but the process of waiting for the results seemed like an eternity to Sophia. The anxiety was almost unbearable. She tried to remain calm for Anna, who remained oblivious to everything, smiling and playing with the innocence of a 2-year-old child. When the results came back, Sophia was nervous. She knew that moment could change her life forever. Dr. Vicente called her into his office for a private conversation, and the serious look on his face made Sophia feel a knot in her stomach. He held the results in his hands. Sophia, first of all, I need to say that what we discovered is surprising. It's a rare genetic combination, but it explains your daughter's appearance. Sophia swallowed hard, while Dr. Vicente continued. Anna carries a recessive genetic trait from her family, which is why her skin is dark. Dr. Vicente explained that, when investigating Sophia's genetic background, they discovered that her family, although predominantly white, had African ancestry in past generations, a detail that had been forgotten or never mentioned. The genetic trait responsible for Anna's dark skin remained dormant for several generations, until it finally manifested itself in her daughter. Sophia was stunned. The revelation was both a relief and a shock. The scientific explanation dispelled doubts about betrayal, but brought to light a piece of her family's history that she was completely unaware of. With the results in hand, Sophia felt a wave of intense emotions. On the one hand, she was relieved to finally understand what had happened, but on the other, she wondered why this part of her family history was never mentioned. The answers she had been searching for so long were finally in front of her. And with that, Sophia realized that her life and Anna's would never be the same again. Sophia left the office Dr. Vincent with the genetic result in his hands and his heart in pieces. The scientific explanation was clear. Anna was not the result of betrayal, but of a recessive genetic trait, long hidden in Sophia's family lineage. The discovery brought immediate relief, but the feeling of heaviness still remained. She now needed to confront something deeper. Why had this part of her story never been mentioned? And what did this mean for his own identity? Upon arriving home, Sophia sat at the kitchen table, with the papers still in her hands. Anna played carefree on the floor, while Sophia tried to process the information. Why did your parents never talk about this African heritage? Did they know? She remembered the few times they talked about the family's past, and always in a superficial way. There were stories, yes, but nothing about that ancestry. Feeling like she had no choice, Sophia decided to do something she had been avoiding for a long time. She picked up the phone and called her mother, Dona Lucia. Dona Lucia answered with a voice full of surprise. After all, Sophia had moved away from her family since she ran away with Anna. The months of silence were broken by the anguish that Sophia could no longer bear. After a few moments of trivial conversations, Sophia finally gained courage and asked, Mom, did you know that we have African ancestry in our family? The silence on the other end of the line was devastating. His mother, surprised by the question, took a while to respond. Where did you get that idea, Sophia? Dona Lucia's voice trembled, revealing that there was something more behind the story. Sophia explained everything. He talked about the genetic tests, what he had discovered, and the impact it had on his life. His mother listened in silence, until she finally responded, cautiously. Yes, Sophia, I knew. But I never thought it was important. I never thought it was something you needed to know. The words cut Sophia like a blade. How could something so important be hidden for so long? His mother tried to justify it, saying that, at that time, it wasn't talked about much, and that his ancestors had assimilated into white society, slowly erasing their African origins. Sophia, her voice choked with emotion, asked, "But, Mom, why didn't you ever tell me? This is part of who we are." Dona Lucia hesitated before admitting the truth that Sophia feared so much. "Because I thought it wasn't relevant. I didn't want it to affect you in any way. When I was a child, my mother told me stories about our ancestors, but over time, our family became more distant from that heritage. We became something else, and I thought it was better that way." The shock of her mother's words hit Sophia hard. There was a part of herself, of her daughter, that had been deliberately erased by her family. It was as if a part of Anna's identity had been denied before she was even born. Sophia felt betrayed, not only by Renato, but also by her own family, who decided to hide this inheritance. After hanging up the phone, she was silent for a long time, looking at Anna, who was playing carefree. How would you explain all this to your daughter in the future? How to tell her that her appearance, which caused her to be so rejected by her father, was part of a buried family history? In the days that followed, Sophia found herself reflecting deeply on what she had discovered. At first, the revelation brought pain, but little by little, she began to realize something more. There was a beauty in that forgotten ancestry, a strength that she now felt pulsating within her. His daughter was not a mistake, much less a consequence of betrayal. Anna was the living link that connected Sophia to past generations, a heritage that no one could erase. It was time to embrace that, to learn about this part of her history, and most of all, to teach Anna to be proud of who she was. Determined to learn more about her ancestry, Sophia decided to look for old family records. She spent hours investigating, uncovering stories about ancestors who had migrated from Africa centuries ago. Every detail he found filled his heart with pride and pain at the same time. Sophia now knew she had a mission: to rescue her family's lost identity and, above all, to raise Anna with pride in who she truly was. After her mother's revelation and the discovery of her African ancestry, Sophia decided to delve even deeper into her family's roots. She felt like she needed to better understand who she was, not just for herself, but for Anna, who will grow up in a world where her identity could be questioned. Sophia began visiting libraries, talking to local historians, and researching genealogical records. She discovered that her ancestors had been brought as slaves to Brazil centuries ago, and over time this heritage had been buried or forgotten as the family assimilated into white society. One day, while reading old documents at a research center, Sophia had an encounter that would change her life forever. Mariana, a middle-aged woman, was sitting at the next table. Noticing Sophia's interest in historical records, Mariana started a conversation. She was also researching her family's history, and upon learning of Sophia's search, she was deeply moved. "I've been tracing my roots for years," said Mariana, "and I think I can help you. My family also has an African lineage that has been forgotten for generations." The two began to talk in more depth. Mariana, with her experience in genealogy, showed Sophia how to trace the records more precisely and encouraged her to continue searching for answers. What started as a casual exchange of information soon turned into a friendship. Mariana explained that she had faced similar dilemmas in her own family. "Many of us have these hidden stories," she said. "Society in the past, and even today, has caused many of us to erase our heritage to avoid discrimination. But we have the right to know and claim our origins." Sophia felt an immediate connection with Mariana, and the two began working together on the research. In one of these searches, Sophia found a name that surprised her. It was that of Miguel, a distant relative who, according to records, was one of the last to carry the original African surname before it was replaced by European names. Miguel was a free man, a direct descendant of slaves, and he had fought to preserve his roots. His story had been erased over the generations, but now, with Mariana's help, Sophia began to gather pieces that linked her family directly to Miguel's story. Mariana and Sophia continued investigating. With each new discovery, Sophia felt as if she was restoring something that had been stolen from her family. The pain of Renato's rejection was still present, but something stronger was beginning to grow within her. Pride in her identity. She wasn't just a woman on the run. He was part of a rich and resilient lineage that had survived centuries of adversity. And now it was her duty to pass the story on to Anna, so that her daughter would grow up with the confidence and pride of knowing who she was. One day, while they were working together, Mariana made a suggestion. "Sophia, I think you should consider finding other members of your family, if there are any still alive. There may be more people with similar stories to yours. Knowing your roots isn't just about the past, it's about understanding who we are today." The idea took Sophia by surprise, but at the same time, it seemed like the next logical step. She had learned so much about her ancestors that she now felt the need to reconnect with living family, perhaps even find someone who could fill in the gaps that remained. With Mariana's help, Sophia began looking for distant relatives who might still be alive. They traced the records and, to their surprise, found a possible connection. A family living in a nearby town with the same old surname as Miguel. What seemed like just a search for the past now took her to the present. Sophia felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Finding this family could bring answers she didn't even know she was looking for. Determined to follow Mariana's suggestion, Sophia decided to contact the family she believed to be descendants of Miguel, the forgotten ancestor of her lineage. She discovered that this family lived just a few hours from where they lived now, in a small rural town. With her heart racing and a mixture of fear and hope, Sophia did what seemed impossible. She called the number she got and spoke to Laura, an older woman, who seemed to be the matriarch of that family. Laura's welcoming tone immediately put Sophia at ease, and when she explained the connection, Laura was silent for a moment, as if processing the information. "I think you should come visit us," said Laura, after a few moments. "If what you say is true, we have a lot to talk about." Sophia couldn't believe what was happening. That phone conversation felt surreal, like I was finally heading towards a long-awaited meeting. The following weekend, she picked up Anna and drove to the small town. As the landscape changed along the way, Sophia felt the weight of a story unfolding before her, a narrative she could barely believe was her own. Upon arriving at Laura's house, Sophia was warmly welcomed. The family seemed simple, but there was a quiet dignity about everyone there. Laura, a woman with gray hair and piercing eyes, hugged Sophia as if they were long-lost relatives. "I've been wanting to know more about our roots for a long time," said Laura, as she led Sophia inside. The atmosphere was cozy, and the family members seemed curious but kind. They gathered around the table, and Sophia, with Anna on her lap, began to tell her story. From Anna's birth, Renato's reaction, to the discovery of genetic inheritance. As Sophia spoke, the faces of Laura and the other family members lit up with recognition. "We always knew there were other descendants of Miguel out there, but we lost contact with many of them," Laura said, with a mixture of sadness and satisfaction. "This part of our history has been forgotten by many, but never by us." She then showed Sophia an old photo album, with portraits of family members that looked like they came directly from the research Sophia had done. It was as if his family's story was unfolding before his eyes. As the afternoon progressed, Sophia and Laura talked for hours. They discussed the impact of ancestry on each other's lives and how this history had shaped their trajectories. Laura told stories that were passed down from generation to generation, stories of struggle, survival, and, above all, pride. For Sophia, those words were like a balm for the soul. It was as if she was being reconnected with a part of herself that she never knew existed, but now made perfect sense. Anna, who was playing happily around the room, also seemed to be part of that moment of healing. Laura watched her with affection and commented, "She is living proof that our history continues, that nothing has been lost." Laura's words touched Sophia deeply. Anna, who had been rejected by her father because of her appearance, was now celebrated as the link that kept that lineage alive and vibrant. In that moment, Sophia felt a peace she hadn't felt in years. Before leaving, Laura handed Sophia a small wooden box, worn out by time. "It's been passed down from generation to generation," she said, "and I think it should stay with you now." Inside the box, there were letters, old photographs, and small objects that had belonged to Sophia's ancestors. Holding that box, Sophia felt like she was touching the story with her own hands. When he said goodbye to his family, he promised to return, not just for her, but for Anna, who now had an inheritance to honor. With the newly discovered roots and the strengthening of her identity, Sophia knew there was one last pending issue in her life: Renato. He still didn't know the truth about Anna, and Sophia felt that now, more than ever, she needed to confront him. She had run away months ago, believing she would never have to deal with the pain he caused her again. But as time passed, she realized that running away wouldn't solve everything. The new Sophia, stronger and aware of her roots, was ready to close this chapter once and for all. Renato, since Sophia's departure, had tried to follow her for a while, but ended up giving up when he realized that she really wasn't coming back. He lived with the certainty that he had been betrayed, and this belief consumed him. When Sophia contacted him asking to meet, he was suspicious, but accepted. The two met in a discreet cafe in the city where they lived together. When he saw Sophia enter, with Anna in her arms, Renato's face hardened. The memories of what he believed to have been a betrayal were still fresh in his mind. Sitting at the table, Sophia wasted no time. She told Renato the whole truth, about the genetic exam, about the discovery of African ancestry, and how that explained Anna's appearance. With each word, Renato seemed to alternate between disbelief and shame. He remembered all the times he accused her, all the harsh words he said, and now, suddenly, everything seemed to dissolve in the face of Sophia's explanation. When she finished speaking, there was a long silence. Renato looked at Anna, who was looking at him curiously, without understanding what was happening. "I don't know what to say," Renato finally admitted, his voice low and heavy with regret. Sophia, who had imagined that moment so many times, felt a mixture of relief and sadness. She was not there to seek Renato's forgiveness, but to end the cycle of mistrust and pain once and for all. "I didn't come to blame you, Renato. I just thought you deserved to know the truth, and that Anna deserves to grow up knowing where she comes from. Now I'm going to move on, and I hope you can too." Renato, visibly shaken, apologized to Sophia. He admitted that his insecurities and prejudices had blinded him, leading him to jump to conclusions. "I should never have doubted you," he said. "I'm sorry, Sophia, for everything I put you through." The words were sincere, but, for Sophia, the impact of Renato's actions no longer had the same weight. She had found her peace, and no longer needed his approval to move on with her life. Sophia left that cafe with the certainty that she had done the right thing. Renato, in turn, was left with the consequences of his actions, but now he understood the truth. The reunion, although painful, was the closing of a chapter that needed to be closed. For Sophia, it was the end of a cycle and the beginning of a new one, where she and Anna could live with pride in their history, their heritage, and, above all, who they really were. After meeting Renato, Sophia felt as if an immense weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Closing that part of her life, confronting the man who made her doubt herself, was freeing. Now, she could look to the future with clarity, and without the shadows of the past haunting her. Life next to Well, it was no longer marked by flight or fear, but by pride and acceptance of who they really were. For the first time in a long time, Sophia felt that her life was complete, even if the paths to get there had been tortuous. Back to her routine at the hospital, Sophia began to approach work with a new perspective. The job, which was initially just a way to support Anna, now became a way for Sophia to build something solid for the future. She moved even closer to Mariana, the friend who helped dig up her family roots. The two became confidants, and Mariana suggested that Sophia could get involved in projects that would preserve the memory of families of African descent who had their histories erased. "You've already done this for yourself, Sophia," Mariana said. "Now you can do this for other people." Mariana's invitation deeply affected Sophia. She had already rediscovered herself personally, but now, she felt she could do something bigger. So, he decided to dive head first into this new project. Together, they began organizing study groups and community meetings to help other families recover their lost stories. Many, like Sophia, carried doubts about their own origins, but never had the courage to investigate. Sophia's journey became, in a way, an inspiration for these people. As the project grew, Sophia also grew as a person. Participating in these activities helped her heal her own wounds and strengthen her pride in her ancestry. Anna, now almost 3 years old, was also part of this transformation. Although she was still too young to understand the depth of the issues her mother was facing, Sophia knew that when the time came, her daughter would be surrounded by a community that would accept and value her. Most importantly, Anna would grow up knowing that her story was rich, complex, and full of resilience. It was during one of these community meetings that Sophia met Leonardo, a kind man, with a calm presence that captivated her from the beginning. Leonardo was also in search of his roots, trying to discover more about his African ancestry. He had grown up with many unanswered questions, and upon meeting Sophia, he felt he had found someone who shared his journey. Little by little, the two began to get closer, exchanging stories and experiences about the search for identity and the impact of this on their lives. Sophia, who had closed herself off emotionally for so long after her breakup with Renato, realized that her feelings for Leonardo were growing in a natural and genuine way. At first, she was hesitant to allow herself to feel anything new, afraid that the wounds from the past were still open. However, Leonardo's kindness and patience convinced her that she did deserve to be happy again. They started going out together, and soon, Leonardo became an important part of Sophia and Anna's lives. As the months passed, Sophia realized that her life was finally heading towards something she had never imagined. A new beginning, but this time, on her own terms. With Leonardo, she found the support and love she so desired. And with Anna growing up healthy and happy, Sophia felt like she was finally building the home her daughter deserved. There was no longer any need to run or hide. Now, she was free to live fully. As the years passed, Anna grew up surrounded by love and a community that accepted her completely. When the girl turned 5, Sophia began to notice questions emerging. Anna, now more aware of herself and the world around her, began to notice that her skin was darker than her mother's. One day, while they were playing in the park, Anna asked, with the innocence of a child, "Mommy, why am I different from you?" The question, although simple, brought to light everything that Sophia had experienced in recent years. She knew this moment would come, but at the same time, she felt a slight apprehension. Sophia looked at Anna and smiled, knowing that this was the perfect opportunity to start telling the family's true story. "You're no different, my love," Sophia said, caressing her daughter's face. "You are special. Our family has a very old history, full of strong and courageous people. And that history is in your eyes, in your smile, and in your beautiful skin." Anna, curious, continued asking questions, and Sophia, with a light heart, began to explain, in a simple way, how her daughter was the result of generations that carried a rich and powerful African heritage. In the following months, Sophia introduced Anna to the story of her ancestors. They spent afternoons looking at old photos, exploring the objects stored in the box that Laura had given it to Sophia, and visiting community meetings where other children, like Anna, also learned about their origins. Instead of trying to explain what it meant to be different, Sophia decided to teach Anna to see beauty and strength in her own story. She wanted her daughter to grow up with the confidence she herself had worked so hard to gain. Leonardo, now a constant presence in both their lives, was also part of this process. He and Sophia created an environment where Anna felt completely accepted and loved. Leonardo, who also brought his own heritage, shared stories of his family with Anna, helping the girl understand that the world was full of people with unique stories, and that her identity was something to be celebrated. The girl grew up knowing that her appearance was not a matter of difference, but of diversity. One of the most memorable moments was when Anna, already 6 years old, participated in a presentation at school about world cultures. Each child should share something about their heritage. Anna, with the help of Sophia and Leonardo, prepared a presentation about her African roots. She walked onto the stage with confidence, speaking proudly about her ancestry and how her family had been through many generations of challenges but always remained strong. For Sophia, watching her daughter speak so proudly about her identity was an emotional and fulfilling moment. From that moment on, Anna began to see her story not as something that separated her from others, but as something that made her unique and special. More and more, She understood that her African heritage was a valuable part of who she was, and Sophia felt fulfilled that she had given Anna the most important gift of all, an awareness of her roots and pride in her identity. More than ever, Sophia was determined to continue teaching Anna about the legacy they shared, ensuring that this story would never be forgotten again. With Anna's identity firmly rooted, Sophia knew her daughter was growing up in an environment where she could flourish, without the shadows of the past that once threatened her future. Now, Anna was prepared to face the world with the strength of her ancestors and the unconditional love of her mother. Years later, Sophia looked at her life with a feeling of completeness that she never believed she would achieve. She had been through a journey full of obstacles, challenges, and surprising discoveries, but now she felt at peace. Next to Leonardo and with Anna, who was now about to turn 10, Sophia knew she had managed to create the home she always dreamed of. The rejection and fear of the past, which tormented her so much, were replaced by acceptance, love, and the certainty that everything they had experienced had shaped who they were now. The relationship between Sophia and Leonardo blossomed over the years. The two tied the knot in a simple ceremony, surrounded by friends and family, including Laura, who became an essential figure in the lives of Sophia and Anna. Laura was the one who led Sophia through the process of discovering her roots, and now she was part of the family that had welcomed her so much. Leonardo also brought his parents into the family circle, and together they celebrated the diversity and richness of their life stories. Anna, surrounded by so much love and acceptance, was a happy, confident child full of curiosity about the world. On a sunny afternoon, while walking through a park close to home, Sophia and Leonardo talked about the path that had taken them there. "Did you imagine your life would take this turn?" Leonardo asked, smiling as he watched Anna running across the lawn. Sophia shook her head with a nostalgic smile. "No. There were times when I thought I would never get out of that nightmare. But I think all the things we've been through have brought us here, and I wouldn't change a thing." Sophia's story was finally complete. She had faced her doubts, confronted her pain, and unearthed a part of her story that had been denied for so long. Now, with the certainty that her identity and Anna's were rooted in something deep and meaningful, Sophia felt that the cycle of her life had closed. What began as a desperate escape turned into a journey of self-discovery and acceptance, where love and understanding were the keys to healing. One of the most memorable moments of this final phase of their journey was when Sophia, Anna, and Leonardo decided to visit the place where Miguel, Sophia's forgotten ancestor, had lived. It was a small town, far from where they lived, but the feeling of connection with that place was immediate. As she walked the streets and visited historic sites, Sophia felt she was finally completing the cycle that began with discovering her roots. Now, it was no longer about what she had lost or forgotten, but about what she had recovered. As Sophia looked to the future, she knew there was still a lot to learn and teach. She and Leonardo would continue to participate in projects to preserve Afro-Brazilian history, helping other families to rediscover their roots, and Anna would grow up in a world where her value and identity would never be questioned. But, above all, Sophia knew that the most important thing had already been done. She had given Anna the chance to grow up with pride, to know her story and to embrace who she really was. The cycle of pain and doubt that once marked Sophia's life had closed. But, in its place, a new cycle of love, acceptance, and legacy began. Now, she was ready for whatever came, with the certainty that she had made peace with her past and secured a future full of possibilities for her daughter and herself.